Welcome. Welcome to the deep dive. You know that feeling, right? When you're just starting to feel a little off, maybe a sniffle starting up or a slight ache, a little tickle in your throat. Now, just imagine that exact feeling hitting you when you're, miles from home. You're in a place where the language is totally new.
Right.
The customs, even how people talk about being sick.
Yeah.
It's all different. It can feel a bit, daunting, can't it? Maybe even a little isolating.
Oh, absolutely. Health, feeling well or unwell, that's universal. But how we talk about it.
Yeah.
And the specific health challenges a place faces, the sort of cultural norms around getting help, that can be vastly different.
Totally.
So knowing how to communicate, how you're feeling, or maybe more importantly, how you're not feeling well. That's not just like being polite. It's essential.
It really is for navigating things, understanding the place better.
And sometimes, honestly, it's about safety too.
Precisely. And that is exactly what we're tackling today in this deep dive. We're aiming to take what looks like a straightforward language lesson. Specifically, how you talk about symptoms in Indonesian. And show you how it it opens up this whole world.
Yeah.
A world of practical communication, some fascinating grammar bits, and some really surprising cultural and even public health insights.
It's not just memorizing phrases, is it?
Not at all. It's like unlocking this direct link between the language and handling real situations, maybe even, keeping yourself healthy.
And we've got this fantastic source document to guide us. It's a language lesson, actually titled Beginner S1 Tag 10, Tell Me Your Symptoms in Indonesian.
Okay.
And it's packed. It's got a core dialogue, a patient and doctor scenario,
Right.
Essential vocabulary, really clear grammar rules for describing feelings, and even this crucial cultural insight piece about health in Indonesia generally.
Sounds perfect.
So we're going to unpack all of it, really peel back the layers. The idea is you'll walk away not just knowing a few phrases, but really getting the context, understanding the implications when you're in that kind of medical situation.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Let's unpack this core dialogue. It's the backbone of the lesson, really.
It is.
And it's simple, super relatable scenario. A patient, his name's Andy, goes to see the doctor. It's short, but like you said, it's loaded with these practical little nuggets. Stuff anyone traveling or living abroad would find, incredibly useful. It sets the stage perfectly for everything else.
And what's fascinating, I think, is just how much information gets conveyed in such a short exchange.
Right. It's efficient.
It really is. It perfectly shows how natural communication works sometimes, especially maybe in a clinical setting. Direct, gets to the point, but there are always these underlying cultural norms sort of humming underneath.
Yeah, like unspoken rules.
Exactly. This little dialogue, it's kind of a microcosm of a much bigger interaction, really. It boils it down to the essentials.
So, okay, the dialogue kicks off. The doctor starts with an observation. The doctor says, Selamat sore Andi. Kelihatannya hidung merah dan bengkak. Now, translated, that's good afternoon, Andy. I see your nose is red and swollen. So it starts polite, right? Selamat sore, good afternoon. That's standard Indonesian greeting, depends on the time of day.
Crucial politeness marker, yeah.
But then, bang! The doctor jumps straight into this very direct visual observation about Andy's nose.
Yeah, your nose is red and swollen.
No small talk, no how are you feeling first,
Yeah.
just straight to the symptom.
And that directness, it's quite telling, isn't it? The doctor immediately points out a visible symptom.
Yeah, red and swollen nose.
Which implies, quick visual check has already happened, maybe as Andy walked in.
Right.
And this approach, this efficiency, it might feel pretty different depending on your own cultural background.
Totally.
Like in some Western cultures, maybe the doctor would chat a bit first, build some rapport, ask what brings you in today, something like that.
Yeah, ease into it more.
Here, the focus is immediately on the physical problem. It suggests a kind of practical problem-solving approach in that interaction. Very direct assessment.
That's a really key distinction. It shows how communication styles, even in a universal place like a doctor's office, can really vary. And then Andy, the patient, he responds. He self-reports his symptoms. Andy says, Selama tiga hari ini saya demam, hidung tersumbat, dan sakit kepala.
Okay, so multiple things there.
Yeah, translates to, I have had this fever for 3 days, my nose keeps running, and I've had a severe headache. So he lists multiple symptoms, but also, and this is vital, right? The duration.
For 3 days. Yeah.
Exactly. Selama tiga hari ini. For these 3 days.
And that point about duration, it's absolutely critical for any diagnosis. When you're explaining symptoms, saying not just what you feel, but how long.
Yeah, it gives the doctor so much more to work with.
Exactly. Essential information. Now, Andy doesn't just say, I have a fever. He clarifies it's been going on for 3 days. That points to something persistent, not just a quick blip.
Right.
So you've got the fever, the running nose, or actually the source says hidung tersumbat, which is more like a congested or stuffy nose.
Ah, okay. Congested, good clarification.
And severe headache. It paints a pretty clear picture for the doctor. Lets them start thinking about possible causes.
Makes sense. Okay, so the doctor's heard the patient's list and now moves to the physical exam. The doctor says, Coba saya periksa, buka mulutmu dan bilang ah.
Right.
Which just means, let me check. Open your mouth and say, ah. And that action, the saying, ah, that's pretty universal, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You see that everywhere. Helps the doctor get a clear look at the throat, the tonsils.
Which, spoiler alert, turns out to be relevant here.
Exactly. And the instructions themselves, they're so simple, so clear.
Yeah, open your mouth.
Even with a big language barrier, you could probably figure that out, maybe with a gesture. It really underscores that practical, hands-on part of a doctor's exam. It kind of transcends language differences.
Yeah, that shared understanding can be really comforting when you're feeling rough in a new place.
Definitely.
So after that quick check, the doctor gives the diagnosis. Kelihatannya ada radang pada amandel. Translates to, looks like your tonsils are inflamed. Direct again, concise. And it uses that diagnostic term, radang. R-A-D-A-N-G. Inflammation.
And that word radang, it's fundamental here, inflammation. It's such a useful word to know because you can stick it together with other body parts to say exactly where the inflammation is.
Okay.
So radang pada amandel, inflammation of the tonsils. But you could have radang tenggorokan, throat inflammation, or radang sendi, joint inflammation.
So it's versatile.
Incredibly versatile for describing specific inflamed conditions. It tells us the doctor thinks they've found the root cause, probably from looking at Andy's throat just then.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So Andy's next line, it's the question every patient asks everywhere, right? Apa yang harus saya lakukan, doctor?
What should I do, doctor?
Yeah, the natural critical question. Okay, you've told me what's wrong, now what do I do about it? Moving from diagnosis to action.
And this is where the doctor lays out the plan. They respond, saya berikan resep obat, habiskan obat ini, minum banyak air, dan istirahat yang cukup.
Okay, let's break that down.
I will give you a prescription for medicine. That's the saya berikan resep obat, core medical intervention.
Right, the prescription.
Then, habiskan obat ini, finish this medicine, emphasizing compliance, which is so important for antibiotics, for example.
Crucial advice. Don't stop halfway.
Exactly. And then minum banyak air, drink a lot of liquid, and istirahat yang cukup, take a good rest.
And I find that part really compelling. It's not just about the drugs.
No.
It includes that supportive advice, drink water, get rest. That's such a common, universally important part of getting better, isn't it?
Absolutely. It points to a more holistic view of recovery. It recognizes that rest and fluids are just as critical as the medication.
Yeah, supporting the body's own healing.
Definitely. Basic self-care, but presented as part of the actual treatment plan. You see that kind of advice globally.
Yeah.
It underlines these sort of universal truths about getting well.
Okay, but then comes this moment that just adds this layer of, well, pure humanness to the whole clinical thing.
Yeah.
A question that probably every doctor has heard 1,000,000 times. After getting all this sensible medical advice, Andy asks, Masibol and Merokok.
Am I still allowed to smoke, doctor?
You can almost feel the collective sigh from healthcare workers worldwide.
It's such an illuminating moment in the dialogue, isn't it? It just instantly shows that human element, how strong habits can be, even when we're sick.
Yeah, the things we find hard to break.
And that question about smoking, it's incredibly universal. You hear it everywhere. Patients often struggle with habits they know aren't healthy, and they'll ask, maybe hopefully, if they can keep doing them.
Even when it's clearly not a good idea.
Right. It highlights how ingrained some behaviors are, the personal battles people face when trying to prioritize their health.
And the doctor's response, commendably clear. Firm. Berhentilah merokok supaya cepat sembuh.
Stop smoking for a quick recovery.
No ambiguity there. It directly links quitting smoking to getting better faster. And this little exchange, it's a critical point, as we'll get into later. It actually points to a much bigger public health issue in Indonesia.
Indeed. This seemingly simple chat about smoking, it's a powerful example of how a personal health moment often reflects much larger societal patterns and public health campaigns.
Right.
It really underscores why understanding the broader health context of a place is so important. It adds layers of meaning to what might seem like just a personal habit question. The doctor's advice isn't just for Andy.
Okay, so we've walked through this really interesting conversation. We've seen the flow, the directness, some of the deeper implications. But what about the actual words? The building blocks?
Yeah, the vocabulary.
Let's zoom in on the vocabulary list from our source.
Yeah.
Because these are the tools, right?
Yeah.
The essential words you need to actually talk about symptoms and health.
And understanding these terms, it's not just about memorizing definitions, it's about seeing how they slot into sentences, how they're used, and how some of them even offer little grammatical or cultural clues.
Right, mastering these is the foundation.
Exactly, for clear, confident communication about how you're feeling.
Okay, first up, berhenti, berhenti. Means to stop or to cease. We heard it loud and clear in the dialogue. Berhentilah merokok. Stop smoking. It's a straightforward verb. Means stopping an action.
Yes, and the source gives a great example showing its flexibility beyond smoking. Saya telah berhenti merokok sejak 7 tahun lalu.
Which means?
Father stopped smoking 7 years ago. So it shows berhenti can apply to stopping any activity.
Okay.
Stopping work, berhenti bekerja. stopping talking, berhenti berpikir. Even a bus stopping, bus berhenti. It's a really useful verb for ending any ongoing action.
Got it. Next, radang. R-A-D-N-G.
Yeah.
We identify this as inflammation.
Yes.
The doctor used it for Andy's diagnosis. Radang pada amandal. Tonsil inflammation.
Yeah.
He said it's powerful for explaining where you have pain or swelling.
Exactly. And its flexibility is key. The source gives another example.
Yeah.
Saya tidak enak badan karena radang tenggorokan.
Meaning, I'm not feeling well because it got...
My throat inflammation. So you see, you can combine radang with different body parts. Radang sendi for joints, radang usus for bowels. It's a core medical descriptor. Really expands your ability to be specific.
Very useful. Okay, then demam. D-E-M-A-M. Simple one. Fever. And he used it right at the start. Saya demam. I have a fever. Probably one of the first words you'd want to know if you feel unwell, right? Such a common symptom.
Absolutely. And the source shows its real-world impact with the example. Karena demam, Andi mengajukan cuti dari kantor.
Because of a fever, Andi asked for leave from the office.
Right. It shows the immediate practical consequence. A fever isn't just feeling hot. It stops you from going to work. It directly affects your daily life.
Good point. Okay. Hidung. H-I-D-U-N-G. Nose.
Simple noun.
The doctor's first observation. Hidung mo merah dan bengkak. Your nose is red and swollen.
And the source gives an everyday example too. Pria itu punya jerawat di hidungnya.
The man has a pimple on his nose.
Just shows basic usage, essential noun for describing appearance or like in the dialogue, symptoms related to the nose congestion, redness, whatever. You need your basic body parts.
True that. Okay, now, merocock. M-E-R-O-K-O-K. To smoke. We heard this in Andy's surprising question. Masih boleh merokok? Still allowed to smoke? The source goes into a bit more detail on this one grammatically.
Yes, it points out something important about the me prefix. In Indonesian, this prefix often turns a root word like rokok, R-O-K-O-K, which means cigarette.
Ah, rokok is the noun.
Exactly. The me prefix turns it into an active verb, merakok, emphasizing the action of smoking.
So it changes the function.
Precisely. It highlights the process, like the example, dia mulai merokok sejak kuliah di luar negeri. He started to actively smoke when he went abroad to study. The me gives it that active, ongoing sense.
That's a neat grammatical insight, transforming noun to verb with the prefix. And the source gives another example about frequency.
Yeah, and it's quite stark. Andi merokok 2 bungkus rokok sehari.
And he smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Wow. 2 packs.
It is, and that statistic really grounds the doctor's advice, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
If someone's smoking 2 packs a day, telling them to stop isn't just casual advice, it's a critical medical intervention. It highlights how serious and common the habit might be in that context, making the doctor's firm stance really understandable and necessary.
Definitely puts it in perspective. Okay, moving on. Recep. R-E-S-E-P. Prescription.
Vital word.
The doctor said, Saya berikan resep obat. I will give you a prescription for medicine. Super practical term for anyone needing treatment.
And the source example emphasizes the practical details. Resep ipo itu untuk dihabiskan dalam 3 hari.
The medicine prescription has to be finished in 3 days.
Exactly. It underscores how important understanding dosage and duration is. It's not just getting the medicine, it's knowing how to take it correctly. Essential for compliance and getting better.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Next. Sakit kepala. S-A-K-I-T K-E-P-A-L-A. Headache. And he mentioned having a severe one. And you mentioned the source breaks down how this term is built, like a pattern.
Yes, and this is incredibly useful. Sakit means hurt or illness or pain. Kepala means head.
So pain head.
Pretty much. And this pattern, sakit, plus a body part is super powerful in Indonesian. The source points out you can use it for lots of things. Sakit gigi, toothache.
Groggy tooth.
Sakit perut, stomachite, perut stomach.
Oh, wow.
Sakit punggung, back pain. It's a massive shortcut for learners, isn't it?
That is a game changer.
Think about it. How many different aches and pains could you describe now? Just knowing sakit and some basic body part words, even if you don't know the specific medical term, it really empowers you to communicate.
That's brilliant. Just knowing sakit is the key. And the example for sakit kepala shows its impact. Kemersai tidak kuat tidur karena sakit kepala.
I couldn't sleep last night because of my headache. Really conveys the severity, how disruptive it can be.
Definitely. Okay, last vocabulary word, obat. O-B-A-T, medicine or medication.
Foundational term.
Doctor said, saya berikan resep, obat, prescription for medicine. And the source gives a practical consideration.
Yeah. Obat ini mahal. This medicine is expensive, a very real-world issue.
For sure. But it also explains something about plurals, how to say medicines.
Yes. Indonesian has this wonderfully simple way to make nouns plural. You just repeat the noun. Reduplication.
Obat becomes
Obat, obatan. O-B-A-T hyphen O-B-A-T-A-N means medicines or multiple medications.
Okay.
The example is, sejak jatuh sakit, dia rutin minum obat-obatan. Since his illness, he takes medicines regularly. It reflects how people often take multiple medications, especially for ongoing things, and shows how easy it is to express that grammatically. No complex endings needed.
simple and effective. Okay, so we have these essential words now. Our toolkit is building, but the real magic, I guess, is stringing them together, right?
Exactly. How do you build sentences?
Our source material gives some incredibly clear guidelines on how to actually describe symptoms and feelings in Indonesian. This is where you get the power to really communicate how you feel, moving from single words to useful statements.
And the good news is, Indonesian sentence structure is relatively straightforward, which makes it quite accessible for learners even when expressing something complex like how you feel physically.
Okay.
So this section breaks down practical ways to do that. Direct, actionable tools you can use when you actually need them, which is crucial in a health situation. You want to be clear.
So let's just quickly recap that key example from Andi in the dialogue. Selama 3 hari ini saya demam, hidung, tersumbat, dan sakit kepala.
For 3 days, I have fever, congested nose, and headache.
It shows the structure, right? Duration first, selama 3 hari ini, then saya, then symptom 1, the conjunction dan is symptom 2, or again symptom 3. Very logical, step by step.
It is. And the source then gives us a list of key adjectives or conditions you'd use to describe yourself. We have lema, alerta, demora, fever, ruamera, or red rash. And then it gives both nyeri and sakit for pain, sore, or hurt.
Nyeri, N-Y-E-R-I,
Yeah.
and sakit, S-A-K-I-T. Is there a difference?
Sometimes subtle, nyeri can sometimes suggest more of a dull ache, while sakit might be sharper or just more general. But honestly, for practical purposes, especially when you're learning, they're often used interchangeably for pain or soreness. People will understand either.
Good tip. Don't sweat the small stuff too much there. What else?
Bengkak, swollen. Mul, nauseous, M-U-A-L.
Okay.
Muntah, vomit. And then pusing, P-U-S-I-N-G, or penning, P-E-N-I-N-G, for lightheaded or headache.
Interesting. So pusing or penning can also mean headache, not just sakit kepala.
Yeah, they often imply that dizzy, lightheaded feeling that can come with a headache, maybe more of a general unwellness in the head rather than the sharp pain sakit kepala might suggest. A slightly different flavor.
Got it. Nuances. So the source gives us two main ways to use these words to describe how we feel.
That's right. Method 1 is super simple and direct. Saya merasa plus adjective.
I feel plus adjective.
Exactly. You just plug in one of those adjectives we listed. It's incredibly versatile.
So you could say, saya merasa lemah. I feel weak.
Perfect. Or the example, saya merasa pusing dan lemah hari ini. I feel lightheaded and weak today. You can string adjectives together with dan and bull. Very easy way to describe your overall state.
Nice. And it can include actions too.
Yes. Look at the second example. Saya merasa mual dan muntah selama 6 jam terakhir.
I feel nauseous, and I have been vomiting for the last 6 hours.
See, it combines the feeling, bull nauseous, with the action, muntah vomiting, and adds that crucial duration, selama 6 jam terakhir. Very informative.
Okay, that's method 1. Saya merasa. I feel. What's method 2?
Method 2 is describing the symptoms more directly. It's less about your internal feeling and more about stating what is happening with your body or the symptom itself. More factual, maybe?
Okay, like stating the condition.
Exactly. For instance, saya batuk terus menerus selama 2 hari ini.
I have coughed constantly for the last 2 days.
The terus menerus there means constantly, non-stop. Again, combined with duration. It gives a much fuller picture than just saying, I am coughing.
Much more worrying too. Okay, another example.
Nafasku sesak dan otot-ototku rasanya sakit.
I'm short of breath and my muscles are sore. That's very descriptive. Nafasku sesak, shortness of breath. And otot-ototku sakit. My muscles feel sore. Pinpoints specific sensations.
It does. Or how about this for skin? Kulit saya gatal dan marmera.
I've got an itchy red rash on my skin.
Okay. Gatal is itchy. And marmera, is that like really red?
Yeah, the repetition marmera often implies intensity or that it's widespread, like multiple red spots making up a rash. Very useful for describing skin issues clearly.
Good detail. Now here's one you flagged as interesting earlier. Gejala ini muncul habis makan udang.
Yes, these symptoms appear after eating shrimp.
This immediately makes you think. Allergy, food sensitivity.
Exactly. It directly links the symptom, gejala, to a potential trigger, habis makan udang, after eating shrimp. How incredibly useful is that phrase?
Seriously practical.
Knowing that pattern helps you identify triggers for yourself or explain a potential cause to someone else. It's a direct connection between language and vital health information. Could even be life-saving with severe allergies.
No kidding. What other examples use this direct description method?
Saya kedinginan dan sangat lemah, terutama pada sore hari.
I have chills, kedinginan, and feel very weak, sangat lemah, especially terutama, in the late afternoon, pada sore hari.
This highlights how symptoms can change over the day, right? Which is common. Fever spiking, energy dipping, again, useful diagnostic information.
Definitely. And for specific pain location.
Saya merasakan nyeri di bagian bawah punggung. I have a sharp pain nyeri in my lower back. Di bagian bawah punggung. Shows how you can be precise about location and maybe the type of pain using nyeri.
Great example. And the last one combines things. Yeah. Hidung saya mampet and perut saya sakit. My nose is stuffy. mampet, and my stomach hurts. Perut saya sakit. It uses a specific word for congestion, mampet, with the general sakit for stomach pain. Shows how you mix and match.
Okay, so those are the two main ways to state your symptoms.
Yeah.
What about asking someone else how they feel?
Yes. The source gives the simple, direct question. Apa yang kamu rasakan?
What do you feel?
Exactly. A really useful, empathetic question. Perfect for checking on someone or for a doctor starting a consultation. Gets right to the point. Foundational for any caring conversation when someone's unwell.
Okay, this is all incredibly practical. We've got the dialogue, context, the words, the grammar-built sentences. But what's the bigger picture here?
Right.
Why is knowing this stuff particularly relevant in Indonesia? Our source connects this language lesson to a wider cultural insight, doesn't it? About the health landscape there.
It does. And this is where it all really clicks together, I think. Understanding the specific health challenges in a tropical country like Indonesia, it's not just academic knowledge.
No.
It deeply impacts daily life, public health efforts, and the kinds of illnesses someone might actually encounter there. So this context makes the language we've just learned even more relevant. It shows why these phrases aren't just theoretical, but practical tools for awareness and maybe even self-protection.
Okay, so what does the source tell us? It starts by stating the obvious but crucial fact. Indonesia is a tropical country.
Right. Not just a geography point, but a key factor for health. Temperatures usually hover between 25 and 32 Celsius, pretty consistently warm and humid year-round, unless you're way up in the mountains.
And that climate has big health implications.
Huge. The source points out several major health concerns linked directly to it. For example, lower respiratory infections. Things like pneumonia, bronchitis.
Okay.
They are cited as the second leading cause of death in Indonesia. Number 2.
Wow. Second highest. Why so prevalent?
Well, warm, humid climates are just really conducive to the growth and spread of the bacteria and viruses that cause these infections.
Makes sense.
Combine that with factors like sometimes high population density, and you've got conditions where these things can transmit easily.
Okay, what else? Influenza.
Yes, pandemic or seasonal flu is a big concern. The source specifically mentions H5N1, that's avian flu or bird flu,
Right.
and H1N1, swine flu. These are flagged as major concerns for Indonesia's national flu program. These aren't just historical notes, they're ongoing public health priorities.
And why are they such significant threats there?
Likely a mix of factors. Close interaction between people and livestock, like poultry and pigs, which can lead to viruses jumping species.
Zoonotic spillover.
Exactly. Plus, dense populations help airborne viruses spread fast. And Indonesia is a major travel hub, right? So new strains can come in, existing ones can spread out. It's a constant challenge to monitor and control them.
Makes sense. And then vector-borne diseases, you mentioned those earlier.
Yes, the source calls them a lethal threat in some regions. Specifically names malaria and dengue virus.
Transmitted by?
Vectors, usually insects. Mosquitoes are the big culprits here for malaria and dengue.
And the tropical climate is ideal for mosquitoes.
Perfect breeding ground. Consistent warmth, humidity, often plenty of standing water. Mosquito populations can thrive all year long. So the risk of catching these diseases is much higher than in temperate zones.
So a fever and a headache in Indonesia might warrant a different level of concern.
Potentially, yes. It highlights why knowing how to describe symptoms accurately and maybe mentioning travel history or potential exposure is so important.
Got it. What else? Tuberculosis.
TB, yeah, still a major issue. The source says it remains one of the top 5 causes of death.
Still. Wow.
Yeah, it's a global disease, but it continues to hit hard in places like Indonesia, where factors like population density, nutrition, housing, maybe variable access to long-term health care all play a role.
A persistent challenge. Okay, and finally, the source makes a really specific point about tobacco.
Yes, and it's quite stark. It says tobacco control still needs a lot more improvement.
That sounds blunt.
It is, and it backs it up with this really alarming statistic. Back in 2009, 20%, 1 in 5 of 13 to 15-year-old students smoked.
20% of young teenagers. That is sobering. What a future public health burden that represents.
It's massive. And this is where Andy's question in the dialogue just snaps into focus, doesn't it?
Am I still allowed to smoke, doctor?
Yeah. Knowing that statistic about teen smoking, it makes that moment so much more powerful. It underscores the deep cultural relevance, the urgent public health background behind the doctor's very firm advice to stop.
It wasn't just personal advice for Andy at all.
Not entirely. The doctor was, in that moment, also confronting this huge systemic public health challenge. That personal interaction was reflecting a much larger societal issue. It's a microcosm, like we said.
That connection is really clear now. So knowing this vocabulary, fever, cough, headache, inflammation, all that,
Yeah,
it's obviously practical for getting help.
absolutely. Being able to articulate symptoms clearly is step 1.
But beyond that, understanding this context, the prevalence of respiratory infections, mosquito-borne diseases, even the smoking issue.
It helps you anticipate things, right? Maybe be more vigilant about prevention, using repellent, being careful with food and water, and helps you understand the local health conversations you might hear.
It prepares you not just linguistically, but environmentally too. It gives you a much deeper, more informed perspective on health there.
Exactly. It transforms the language from abstract words into practical tools for awareness and navigating that specific environment.
What an incredible deep dive this has been.
Right.
Seriously. We started with what looked like just a basic language lesson, how to say you feel sick in Indonesian.
Yeah, simple enough on the surface.
But we walked through that realistic doctor-patient chat. We built up a really solid vocabulary list, piece by piece. We mastered those essential grammar patterns for actually expressing how you feel.
The saya merasa and the direct description methods.
Exactly. And then, crucially, we connected all of that language stuff to the very real, significant public health landscape shaped by Indonesia's tropical climate and, well, its cultural context too, like with smoking.
It really does show how language is never just words in isolation, does it?
Not at all.
It's like this living gateway. It opens doors to understanding culture, specific health realities, the practical challenges that shape everyday life somewhere.
Yeah.
So now you're equipped not just to say, sakit, kepala, I have a headache, but you kind of understand why that phrase, or demam, fever, might carry extra weight or different implications in that specific Indonesian context.
You've basically gained a shortcut to being much better informed about a really crucial aspect of communication and cultural insight. It's not just translating words, it's about translating understanding, making you better prepared, more aware.
And that really makes you think, doesn't it? How understanding the specific health situation of a country could actually change how you approach learning its language.
Yeah, like prioritizing certain vocabulary.
Exactly. Making some phrases way more important than others, depending on the context. It's not just about grammar rules, it's about navigating the real world.
True.
And it also makes you wonder what other seemingly ordinary everyday interactions might hold similar deep cultural or practical insights. You know, things we often just overlook.
Like going to a market, ordering food, taking a bus.
Yeah, all those little encounters. Maybe they're packed with hidden layers of meaning about the culture, the society, the practicalities of life there. Worth keeping an eye out for those connections, right? Keep diving deep.
Yeah.
You find knowledge everywhere.
Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe.